Welcome back to the channel, everybody. So, if you are a regular of the channel, you're probably looking around thinking something's a little bit different. Okay, now I've had the YouTube channel for about a year now, and I figured it was time to actually upgrade the channel and try to look like a real YouTube channel. All right, so we upgraded the camera, microphone, the lighting. We got some cool new background effects. All right, so hope you guys like it. All right, this is the first video trying this all out. All right, so also, what better time for a new channel appearance than right before America starts Global War on Terror 2.0. Yay! All right, now, if you haven't been watching the news today, okay, you probably didn't see that there is a massive mobilization from the U.S. military headed to the Middle East, and more specifically, Israel. Who said that this is exactly what was going to happen 2 to 3 months ago? I don't know. Maybe these videos I did. Almost as if it's not that difficult to tell how these people operate anymore, okay? And it's kind of actually hilarious that the hundreds of comments I got on videos like these about how I'm being a fearmonger and the United States will never go to war again and war's never going to happen in the Middle East or Israel and all these places. Imagine that, right? Okay, so we're going to talk about you may have heard that we're massively scaling up the troops headed to the Middle East. Obviously, the new war between Israel and Lebanon, Hezbollah, is kicking off. All right, so here we go again. Another terrorist organization that the United States can go fight for another 20 years. All right, great, fantastic. And let's talk about it. Okay, we'll talk about what you probably haven't seen, right? Because the talks today is, oh, we've sent a few more troops to the Middle East. No, that's a little bit disingenuous. We're going to talk about what's actually been deployed to the Middle East. And it's the last time we had this level of mobilization was to start an invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan. And the time before that was, Desert Storm. Almost as if it's obvious what's about to happen. I also made this prediction 2 months ago, 3 months ago or so on the video, strictly just based off of the military-industrial complex stocks, okay? Those who watch the channel know I've already talked about this. All of them have gone straight vertical over the last 3 months. Why? Because the stock market is 3 to 6 months forward-looking. All the elites have inside access. They know what's going to happen, and they're all just piling their money into defense stocks. And now look where we're at, all right? So I digress. Let's actually talk about what is actually happening. So let's roll this first clip, and this is one of the clips you may have seen on the news today, and we're going to talk about it. All right, let's roll it.
The U.S. is deploying additional troops to the region. Chief Global Affairs anchor Martha Redditz is in Israel with the details. Good morning, Martha.
Good morning, George. The additional forces that the U.S. is sending here to the region are a special operations team, a small team, to help provide planning for a possible evacuation of American citizens if this war spirals out of control. And there are deep concerns that could happen. There are already 40,000 U.S. troops in the region, including a carrier strike group at sea. But there are tens of thousands of Americans now living in Lebanon and, of course, here in Israel as well. The State Department would make the determination whether to order an evacuation. But even before this intense round of Israeli bombing, the State Department warned Americans living in Lebanon to get out of the country while commercial travel was still available. That could become much more complicated, George, if the airports were hit. George?
Okay.
All right, so what she's talking about there, a special operations team, small special operations team, she means specifically into Israel to remove Americans because this war is about to kick off, and potentially Lebanon, right? That is not including the 50,000 troops that are in the Middle East and all of the other assets that we're about to talk about, okay? So that one's a little disingenuous, but what's important from that is talking about how these nations, United States, even places like Turkey, are issuing a warning to all of their citizens in Lebanon to get out of the country, okay? They don't do this unless we're about to invade the country, all right? So the United States has said, of the 10,000 or so American citizens in Lebanon, you need to get out. Turkey has said to all their citizens in Lebanon, you need to get out. Why? Because Lebanon's about to be invaded, okay? And we're going to talk about Israel has literally said that they're going to start a ground invasion. We'll show that clip later, but it's happening, guys. Like, the global war on terror 2.0 is about to kick off, right? All the signs are there. We're massively mobilizing, all right? So now let's talk about what's actually been deployed to the Middle East, because it's not just an extra special operations team, okay? No, all right? So let's watch this clip, which does a lot better job of actually talking about what we've really got in the Middle East. Let's check it out.
We're learning more about this new deployment of U.S. troops to the Middle East. CBS's Charlie D'Agata is at the Pentagon. Good evening, Charlie. And how is the U.S. military preparing for a wider conflict?
Well, Nora, tonight the Pentagon is calling the latest escalation between Israel and Lebanon a dangerous situation, and that decision to send in additional troops is to bolster more than 40,000 American troops that are already there. So the Pentagon spokesman said there is the potential for a wider regional conflict. The State Department now urging all Americans in Lebanon to leave the country while commercial flights are still available. The U.S. military already has numerous assets in the region, including the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier, a fleet of destroyers, a USS Georgia submarine, and thousands of troops on military bases. Just today, another carrier group set sail for the Mediterranean, 6,500 sailors on board on an already scheduled deployment. Its arrival would allow the U.S. to have 2 carrier strike groups in the region in case tensions continue to mount. Nora?
Charlie D'Agata with that.
All right, so you can see that's not just a special operations team. It's multiple aircraft carrier and strike groups, plus destroyers, and everything has just been shoved to the Middle East, getting prepared for something, okay? And you need to watch for language, okay, from the Department of Defense and the Pentagon, right? Especially when they say that one line in there, which is very, very important, okay? There's potential for wider regional conflict. Oh, okay. We know what that means, right? That America is going to have to get involved to fight terrorism again, or Iran might get involved, right? So it can go a lot of different ways, but the reality is we don't mobilize what I'm going to tell you has been mobilized unless we're actually about to go to war, okay? So what we actually have mobilized, right? Let's talk about it, okay? 2 airstrike carrier strike groups, okay? So these are aircraft carriers, right? So we've deployed 2 of these strike groups plus all the planes that go with them to the Middle East. This is massive, okay? So we're basically diverting a huge portion of our Navy and our aircraft carrier strength in preparation for something in the Middle East, in this area, okay? On top of that, a fleet of naval destroyers, okay? Plus 50,000 troops that are now in the Middle East. 50,000 ground troops are in the Middle East. That is way more than we had in Afghanistan when we were actually at war. Wonder why they're all there, all right? 4 land-based fighter jet squadrons, an additional squadron of A-10s, an additional squadron of F-15Es, an additional squadron of F-16s, an additional squadron of F-22s, and a pair of B-1 bombers have all been diverted and are headed to the Middle East. Wow, okay? I'm sure that's just for, just in case peacekeeping efforts. No, it's not, guys. We're massively mobilizing. And so we got to talk about what... It's just wild that, like, they didn't even wait. When did Afghanistan stop? 2022? It's been 2 years. Like... They can't help themselves, guys. Right? And again, the military-industrial complex is poised to make trillions of dollars off of this one too. So of course, right? This is how it goes, right? So new terrorist group, new flavor of the decade. Here we go. All right, now what's about to actually happen? All right, so again, Israel has already stated out loud that they are preparing for a ground invasion into Lebanon to fight Hezbollah. All right, so let's watch the clip. Their commander himself has said it. Check it out.
Correspondent Matt Bradley joins me now from Beirut. So, Matt, let's talk about this. There's been a lot of discussion about a ground invasion. Does it now seem inevitable? Where do things stand?
Well, I wouldn't say it seems inevitable, Kristen, but I mean, the language that we've been hearing from the chief of staff of the Israeli military really makes it sound like they are girding for that very possibility in a way that almost looks as though there's no going back. I can't make predictions, and every time I do, Kristen, I end up with egg on my face, so I'm not going to do that now. We did hear the words possibly and potentially, but we also heard in those same comments, and he was addressing his own rank and file, his own troops in northern Israel. He said, and we use this term, boots on the ground. He said to these troops, put on your boots, kind of lace up your shoes, put on your boots for these maneuvers. And he described everything about the upcoming operation, not in a tactical way, but he talked about how they will be going into, and he used the word will be, after he used the word perhaps and possibly earlier in his statements, saying that they will be going into villages and towns that have been fortified by Hezbollah, areas where they're going to be meeting really strenuous resistance. And he said that they will be showing these Hezbollah fighters an example of a professional fighting force. So there is, on some level, both the preparation and it sounds almost like the will and the desire to go in and execute what could become a blistering operation.
You have a clear.
All right, there you go. So, I mean, Israel has announced they're going to invade Lebanon and fight Hezbollah, right? So the fact that America is massively mobilizing a military force to Israel at the same time as them announcing that, I think we're all should be pretty obvious what's about to happen, okay? But there's some things that you also needed to watch for that would clue you in of why this is almost so guaranteed to happen. I hope I'm wrong, but again, we don't do this unless we're actually about to go engage in a new 10-year war. So, what's going to happen? What does the U.S. do here? So, at an absolute minimum, right, the U.S. gets involved as a proxy and supplier, much like we are with Ukraine. Okay, so we are going to fund and equip Israel for that war effort. That's bare minimum, all right? And then they're, of course, going to use taxpayer dollars to send your money to Israel. It's not going to Israel, of course. It's going to the military-industrial complex, companies to send equipment and everything to Israel, right? Which they already do. But I digress, right? We all know how that works at this point. I'm not going to insult your intelligence. All right, but most likely, based off of the massive mobilization of troops, aircraft carriers, fighter jets, like we don't deploy our entire arsenal of fighter jets into the region unless we're planning on using them. And that's because we're going to get involved because it's a terrorist organization, right? Hezbollah, it's the easy button, right, to press on Americans, right? They can play the sympathies of 9/11 and all those things like they did before, and we got to stop Islamic terrorism. We'll get right back to that, even though we just, gave the Taliban $100 billion worth of equipment, right? They'll come up with some excuse to do it. Now, of course, this is just an easy global war on terror 2.0, right? Fighting an insurgency, you can fight them forever, all right? You're dropping $500,000 or $500,000, 500-pound bombs on dudes on mopeds and stuff, right? It is what it is, okay? So the problem here is the potential, as the Pentagon said, for wider regional conflict to erupt, okay? And that is, and this is literally what I predicted in my how does sort of World War III break out, almost specifically how I predicted this, was a conflict in, and I said this in a video, you can go back and watch, Israel boils over, Iran gets involved, and I specifically said Lebanon and Hezbollah get involved, right? And then that blows out of control. When that happens, the United States starts diverting all of its assets, which is happening right now, to the Middle East, okay? Potentially pulling that away from Ukraine, right? Russia probably begins to take back an advantage. Massive war in Ukraine, massive war in the Middle East. And then the perfect time for, like I said, China to take Taiwan because America is so stretched thin. Well, sure. It hasn't happened yet, but my prediction is sure the steps are sure going in line here. Again, I hope it doesn't happen, guys. But there's so much money for these people to make off of this stuff that, it's nothing new, right? Now, when is this going to pop off? We can tell we're poising for it. We're getting ready for it. Obviously, America will not give any go-ahead to Israel or our own troops before the election, not with the current incumbent being who they are. Okay, they obviously know that's political suicide. However, immediately after the election, okay, and this is whoever wins, because keep in mind there's a break, even if Trump wins, right, there's a 3-month period where they still have control. And what would be a better way to set him up for failure? Engaging in a new massive war in the Middle East. They can blame it all on him for the next 4 years. Okay, and if they win, right, the other side wins, then you should also expect it, and they'll poison it. The media will get on board. It'll be propagandaed into patriotism and fighting a new war on terror. Yada yada yada. We'll probably face some terrorist attacks here that will ignite that off. Okay. But the way that you can really know, and this was the narrative shift at the debate, if you weren't paying attention, and you were probably confused when she was asked about Israel, she all of a sudden completely flip-flopped her tone, because she's been this massive pro-Palestine, anti-Israel politician, and then at the debate, all of a sudden, she says this.
Let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis, many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would.
Right. And so, right, why was there this massive flip-flop? Doesn't make any sense, right? Like, you super against Israel, and now all of a sudden you're super pro their ability to defend themselves? Oh, because, right, the MIC and the government, everybody's getting ready to start the next giant war on behalf of Israel. We can't have her, right, being anti-Israel at this time, okay? So that paradigm shift should, with what's happening with this massive mobilization, you have to pay attention to these things, guys, should clue you into exactly what's happening on that end, right? Now, again, and another one for their side, right, the party of war. If you didn't see this, and again, people say they're not the party of war. Let's watch this clip, guys, in case you missed this. Check this out.
Is that President Zelensky is here in the United States, not just in the United States, in a battleground state, flown there on a U.S. Air. Let's move on to Ukraine. This is just, I mean, this is an insane situation. Is that President Zelensky is here in the United States, not just in the United States, in a battleground state, flown there on a U.S. Air Force jet so that him and the governor of Pennsylvania can have a grotesque signing of bombs that are being manufactured to be shipped into war. Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. Governor Shapiro met President Zelensky on the tarmac. They appeared together. That's Bob Casey, by the way, right there, the senator also from Pennsylvania, shaking Zelensky's hands. And they're like gleefully in this factory signing bombs that are being manufactured in Scranton, Pennsylvania, manufactured, by the way, with our tax dollars, and then being shipped abroad to fund the war in Ukraine. And he says, you know, we must all do our part for the fight for freedom, the workers in Scranton, the arsenal of democracy. This is all just World War II nostalgia BS.
Yeah, that's their, you know, Shapiro is their up-and-comer who they basically want to be the next president of the United States. They're in Pennsylvania signing and autographing bombs with Zelensky to be dropped on and slaughter people. That's where we're at now, guys. Okay, so again, you think these people aren't, like, they're completely beholden to the military-industrial complex, right? It's just, nothing is even a secret anymore. They don't try to hide it, right? So again, I hope I'm wrong, but yeah, I think you know, all signs of, you know, when I tried to look around at the world objectively and what's happening through a lens of, you know, somebody who was in special forces a long time and follows foreign policy and how all these things work out, it all seemed extremely obvious to me what was happening. And again, we're sort of right on the calm before the storm, potential climax of this boiling over into that. So all my young dudes who felt, you know, that they were too late to get in on the global war on terror, you missed your chance to go to combat. Well, boys, strap those boots up, because like Israel's commander just said, it's about to be boots on the ground. All right, so it is what it is, guys. All right, so here we go. It's going to be an interesting next 3 months to watch, right? So I hope to God I can come back in December and, you know, we can look at this video and go, I was so far off, okay? But got a bad feeling that we're going to come back in December and we're all going to go, oh, wow, that's exactly what we thought it was going to be. All right, boys. Appreciate it. Also, go cop yourself some merch, right? Got all the sizes. Oh, and again, I got a new supplier, so I've got the prices down on all the stuff, so I was able to lower the prices in the shop. So go cop yourself the merch because it is cheaper than it used to be. All right, everybody. Hope you enjoy the new channel. Still trying to work on it, but let me know what you think, and take care, everybody.